Moses, the stakes are high today. Prove that you fathered her 1-year-old daughter, Lamaya. And you say Ms. Lytle denies that you're the father because...
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Lytle, you claim you want this paternity dispute to be over just like your relationship.
What happens when 20 years of unpaid child support, broken trust, and painful secrets finally collide in one courtroom? This is the story of men who denied, women who defended, and children who just wanted answers. In a battle where truth doesn't just decide paternity, it decides redemption. In a courtroom charged with emotion, judgment, and long-buried resentment, one man walks in carrying more than a folder of papers. He carries 20 years of debt, regret, and unanswered questions. His name is Mr. Conway, and for 2 decades, he's been accused of fathering a son he claims isn't his. Over those 20 years, he's been arrested time and again, watched his life crumble under the weight of $53,000 in child support, and spent each Christmas Eve behind bars, not for a crime, but for a child he insists he never fathered. This is paternity court, where DNA doesn't just reveal biology, it reveals truth, betrayal, and sometimes the hope of a new beginning. But before Mr. Conway's long-awaited results, the courtroom has already seen chaos unfold between other mothers and alleged fathers. Tangled relationships filled with confusion, heartbreak, and denial. In one case, a man named Mr. Moses stands before the judge with tears in his eyes, holding on to the belief that a little girl named Laya is his daughter. For months he's loved her, cared for her, and called her his own. He signed the birth certificate, was there when she was born, and took her home from the hospital. Every fibre of his being believes that baby is his. But the child's mother, Miss Lytle, insists otherwise. She says she told him the truth early on, that there was another man, that she didn't know for certain who the father was. Yet despite her warnings, Moses stayed. He chose to be a father anyway, out of love, not certainty. Now as the truth edges closer, both stand at the edge of heartbreak. Moses, filled with hope and pain, explains through trembling words that he doesn't care about their broken relationship. He just wants his daughter. Miss Lytle, equally worn and angry, says she can't handle him anymore. Their relationship has become toxic, bitter, and filled with arguments that bleed into every part of their lives. She admits that sometimes she just doesn't want him around, not because of the baby, but because she can't live with the man he's become. When the judge presses her, Miss Lytle finally breaks down and admits she doesn't even know who the child's father truly is. The courtroom falls silent. There's another man, Mr. Green, waiting to be called in. He walks in calm but uncertain, removing his sunglasses as the judge reminds him that no one hides from the truth here. He says he and Miss Lytle were close once, that they slept together around the same time she conceived. He's been around since the baby was born, sometimes even holding the child in his arms. But he's never been called Dad. As the truth unfolds, one thing becomes clear. Miss Lytle never meant to deceive anyone. She simply didn't know. Moses stepped up, Green stepped back, and she let things stay that way, out of confusion and fear, not malice. Finally, the judge opens the envelope. The courtroom tenses, every breath held still. In the case of Moses and Green versus Lytle, the judge reads, pertaining to whether Mr. Moses or Mr. Green is the father of 1-year-old Leah Moses, it has been determined by this court that the biological father is Mr. Green. Moses lowers his head. The words hit like a thunderclap. The child he's raised, the one he's loved beyond measure, isn't biologically his. Yet in that moment, he doesn't shout or argue. He just says quietly, I'm glad we know now. I would have loved to be her father, but now I don't have to deal with that pain anymore. It's bittersweet, the kind of truth that frees and destroys at the same time. And as Moses leaves, another man enters, carrying 20 years of confusion and anger. Mr. Conway has lived a life defined by debt, court orders, and a child he believes isn't his. For decades, he's been hunted by the system, arrested 10 times, often without warning. He's lost jobs, apartments, even his dignity. Every time he tries to build his life again, he says, the law finds him and drags him back. Beside him stands his sister, tired but loyal, watching her brother's pain unfold for the world to see. She testifies how he's tried, how he's worked, only to lose everything each time he's taken away. On the other side of the courtroom, the mother, Miss Cruz, stands firm. She insists he's lying, that he's just trying to escape responsibility. Her son, Trayvon, is now 20 years old, and she says she's raised him almost entirely on her own. She's received next to nothing. Maybe 29's here, a few dollars there, she says bitterly. Maybe $5,000 total in 20 years, Conway shakes his head. That's not true, he argues. I've paid through Nebraska. I've got 2 child support orders, one in Missouri and one in Nebraska. I didn't even know about the second one until they arrested me. The courtroom becomes a storm of overlapping voices, anger, disbelief, exhaustion. The judge raises her hand to silence them. Then comes the calendar. Conway holds up a piece of paper covered in dates, lines, and handwritten notes. He says it proves the math doesn't add up, that Miss Cruz left town for 9 months and only returned when she was already pregnant. He claims she told him she was expecting 7 months after she left, which, according to him, is impossible. Miss Cruz disagrees. She says he's twisting the timeline, that he was there, that he held the baby in his arms, that he just doesn't want to pay. When the judge asks why his name isn't on the birth certificate, the story shifts again. Conway says she told him not to sign it. She says he refused. Each points to the other, both standing their ground. Then the son, Trayvon, speaks. He's 20 now, but his voice carries the weight of 2 decades of confusion. He says he always knew who his father was, or at least who he was told it was. He remembers phone calls that never came, birthdays missed, and broken promises. Then, with emotion in his eyes, he tells a story that stops the courtroom cold. He remembers one day, as a child, when Conway took him out. They went near a strip club. Conway said they were just waiting for a bus. But when they got there, Conway went inside. Trayvon wasn't allowed in. He was too young. So he waited outside alone, sitting by the Salvation Army, watching strangers pass. He waited 15 minutes for a father who left him standing outside a strip club. The courtroom is silent again. It's a painful image, not of crime or violence, but of a child's forgotten innocence. Trayvon looks at his father and says, "You've been calling me your son for 20 years, but now you're here denying me. You're embarrassing me. You talk about my mother like she's nothing. You've never taught me anything. My stepdad taught me how to live, not you." Conway tries to interrupt, but the judge cuts him off. "Let him speak," she says. Trayvon's voice trembles, but remains steady. He's not yelling. He's not crying. He's just speaking from years of silence. You were never there. And now you're here arguing about math. You don't know what that feels like. Conway falls quiet. For the first time, he looks small. Not because of guilt, but because of realization. He's confronted not just with the court's judgment, but with the voice of the boy who waited for him all his life. And then, the truth finally arrives. The judge opens the DNA envelope. Every heart in the room beats louder. 20 years of child support, 10 arrests, thousands of dollars, and 2 decades of resentment all lead to this single moment. In the case of Conway versus Cruz, the judge reads carefully. When it comes to 20-year-old Trayvon Cruz, "Mr. Conway, you are his father." Conway's eyes widen. The mother gasps. The son stares forward, speechless. The courtroom erupts, not in joy, not in anger, but in stunned silence. Conway tries to speak, his words trembling between guilt and relief. "I'm sorry," he says finally. "I apologize, man. I really do. I can't make up for the time I missed, but I want to try. I love you." But Trayvon doesn't look at him. He shakes his head slowly. "I forgive you," he says, "but I don't want anything to do with you." The pain in his voice cuts deeper than any judgment. It's the sound of closure, harsh but real. The judge nods slowly. Maybe not today, she says softly, but time has a way of healing. Be ready when that day comes. The courtroom is still, its tension lingering in the air long after the DNA results are read. Mr. Conway stands motionless, a man who has spent 20 years fighting against a truth he could never escape. The paper in his hand proves what his heart denied for decades. The son he abandoned, the one he resented paying for, was his all along. For a brief moment, his expression softens. The anger fades, replaced by regret that's been building for 20 long years. He stammers through tears, saying he's sorry, that he wishes things had been different, but forgiveness doesn't come easy. Trayvon looks him in the eyes, calm, mature, steady, and says, "I forgive you, but I don't want anything to do with you." It's not cruelty, it's exhaustion. He has lived a lifetime in absence, learned to depend on a man who wasn't his biological father, and built an identity around someone who never showed up. The DNA paper may define biology, but it can't rewrite 20 years of pain. The courtroom watches silently as Conway nods, his head bowed. The judge tells him gently that redemption takes time, that being a father is not something proven by blood, but by action. He's told to be patient, to wait for the day his son's heart might be ready. And with that, the gavel falls. One chapter closes, another begins. But the show doesn't stop there. Another man steps into the courtroom, holding a different kind of pain. His name is Mr. Williams. He once believed he wasn't the father of his partner's unborn child, a belief fueled by confusion, mistrust, and a devastating clerical error that tore two lives apart. It began when his girlfriend, 4 months pregnant, took a prenatal DNA test. The results came back saying he was not the father. She was shattered. He was furious. They separated, both convinced that fate had played a cruel trick on them. But then, days later, another letter arrived from the same testing company. A letter claiming there had been a mistake. The first result was wrong. Mr. Williams was the father after all. Their world turned upside down. In the courtroom, he sits next to her, still unsure what to believe. The judge reads the new results, the correct ones this time. "Mr. Williams," she announces, "you are the father." Tears fill his eyes. Relief and disbelief mix into one overwhelming flood of emotion. The courtroom breaks into applause. Months later, in a follow-up interview, he speaks with pride. He thanks the court, saying, "We changed our son's name. His name is now Khalil Williams. We share joint custody. We're raising him together." His voice cracks slightly. "We finally got the truth, and we got our family back." It's stories like these that show what paternity court is really about. Not just exposure or judgment, but truth, healing, and sometimes even forgiveness. But the road to peace isn't the same for everyone. The next case, brought by a woman named Carrie Gregory, begins not with love but chaos. A confession of a threesome that shatters trust. She admits to the court that while dating her ex, she also slept with her friend's boyfriend. "We had a threesome," she says bluntly, her voice steady but heavy. "And I got pregnant soon after." The man she's accused of fathering her child, Mr. Elston, sits next to her, stiff, emotionless, betrayed. He had once proposed to her, believing she was faithful. Now he's unsure if he even wants to stay. "I loved her," he says, "but I can't live with doubt. I broke off our engagement 2 weeks ago because I don't know if the baby is mine." When the judge reads the results, the truth lands hard. "Mr. Elston, you are not the father." The room falls silent again. Carrie lowers her head, ashamed but oddly relieved. The tension between them evaporates into a strange calm. The calm that comes when there's nothing left to argue about. But sometimes, life surprises even the broken-hearted. In a later update, the couple appears again, this time smiling. They reveal they got back together and even got married. Carrie, now 5 months pregnant, says, "He's not Carson's biological father, but he's been there for him. He goes to every doctor's appointment. We're thankful for the results. Now we can move forward." From betrayal to marriage, proof that even the harshest truths can lead to new beginnings when forgiveness takes the place of pride. Then comes one of the show's most emotional stories, one that leaves even the judge in tears. A young man named Sanchez Gower stands before the court, desperate to know the truth about the man who may or may not be his father. He's 24 and has lived almost his entire life without parents. His mother died when he was just 4 years old, leaving him to be raised by his grandparents. He looks at the alleged father, a man named Mr. Ducasse, and says, "I've spent my whole life wondering who I am. I had to depend on people who weren't even my parents. I just want to know the truth. I need answers," his voice breaks. "I would never leave my child stranded the way I was left." Even before the results are read, the emotion is overwhelming. The judge, holding back tears, tells him, "You deserve to know where you come from." Then comes the verdict. "Mr. Ducasse, you are the father." The young man collapses into tears. The father covers his face, trembling. The courtroom stands still. No anger, no denial, just the heavy sound of two hearts finally meeting after 24 lost years. Later, they share an update, smiling side by side. Sanchez says softly, "We talk every day now. We're rebuilding our relationship. I thank Judge Lake for helping me find my father and helping me become a better man. It's a rare moment of pure peace where pain finally turns into purpose." But peace doesn't always come so easily. In another case, a woman named Tanya Currington recalls how she met a man named Ian Kim Larson at a hotel. She laughs nervously as she describes their first meeting. "He looked me up and down," she says. "I had on these little shorts, and he said I was thick." Larson admits he was attracted to her, and soon the relationship became physical. They didn't plan a pregnancy, but they didn't prevent it either. When Tanya became pregnant, Larson denied the baby, claiming she'd been seeing someone else. When asked by the judge if they were using protection, Tanya shakes her head. "No, Your Honor." Then, the judge says, "You were planning to have a baby. You just didn't say it out loud." In court, Tanya holds back tears. "He was there when I needed him," she says, "but the moment I got pregnant, everything changed." The results reveal the truth. "Mr. Larson, you are the father." Larson sighs with relief, saying, "I love her. I want to be in my daughter's life." Months later, Tanya gives an update. She's moved on and married another man, but says, "We're co-parenting now. I let him be involved. We're doing what's best for our child." The lessons continue. Love, betrayal, truth, and growth all intertwined in stories that echo real life more than anyone wants to admit. Then there's Miss Golder, a young mother who claims that her ex, Mr. Grand Mason, is the father of her baby girl. He's confident, emotional, and insists that he's been there since day one. But the woman sitting next to him, his new girlfriend, shakes her head, convinced he's not the father. The tension between them crackles through the courtroom. The girlfriend insists, "I know that baby's not his. I'm certain." When the results come back, the judge reads, "Mr. Graham Mason, you are not the father." The heartbreak is immediate. Mason lowers his head, whispering, "I still love that baby." The judge reminds him that being a father isn't just about DNA. It's about choice, about staying even when you have every reason to walk away. But the story doesn't end there. Later, the mother, Miss Golder, returns with an update. She's pregnant again, and insists that Mr. Mason isn't the father this time either. The cycle of confusion continues, showing how fragile truth can be when relationships are built on broken trust. Then comes one of the show's most unforgettable moments, when a young woman named Miss McNair collapses in the courtroom upon hearing that the man she believed to be her child's father wasn't. Her partner, Mr. Travis, stands there in disbelief as the judge reads the results. "Mr. Travis, you are not the father." The mother's knees buckle. The courtroom gasps. The judge calls for medics. The moment is raw and real. A collapse not from pain alone, but from the sudden weight of truth she wasn't ready to carry. Weeks later, she returns with an update. Her voice is calm, reflective. After court, we moved back in together. We're working on our trust, our friendship, everything. We're taking it one day at a time. Even after betrayal, love still finds a way to rebuild itself, piece by piece, through honesty and effort. And finally, the most shocking case of all, a story that blurred the lines between friendship, family, and betrayal. Miss Jackson stands in court, accused of trapping her best friend's son. Her best friend, Miss Robinson, sits beside her furious. "You slept with my son," Robinson shouts. "He's grown, but he's still my child. What kind of friend is that?" The tension is unbearable. The judge asks Jackson directly if she's sure her friend's son is the father. Jackson nods. "Yes, Your Honor, I'm sure." But Robinson disagrees. She insists there's another man, a married man, who could be the real father. When the results are read, everyone holds their breath. "Mr. Charles Robinson," the judge says, "you are the father." The room explodes in emotion, tears, laughter, disbelief. The once furious mother, Miss Robinson, suddenly smiles through tears and says, "Then that baby is family." In their follow-up message to the court, they say they're working to build peace. "We're trying to be a happy family together," Robinson says. "We welcome Milani with love. It's a moment of grace, messy, imperfect, but hopeful." And, in the end, paternity court is not about shame. It's about truth, the kind that tears you apart before it sets you free. Every story, every argument, every tear shed in that courtroom reveals one simple fact. DNA might tell you who the father is, but it cannot tell you who a dad will be. When the cameras stop rolling, real lives continue. The tests may bring closure, but they also bring a deeper challenge, learning to live with the truth. Some walk away in silence, others begin to rebuild, and for a few, that single sheet of paper becomes a bridge between two broken hearts. After the chaos of betrayal, pain, and anger, there are stories that bring a quiet calm, stories of people who chose love even after hearing the words they feared most. One of those moments came when Mr. Travis and Miss McNair, after that unforgettable courtroom collapse, decided to try again. Their update was brief but powerful. They said, "We moved back in together right after court. We're working on trust again. We're working on everything. It wasn't perfect, but it was real." In their brokenness, they found a kind of strength that DNA couldn't measure, the courage to forgive. Another unforgettable story was that of Sanchez Gower, the young man who had spent 24 years searching for a father who never came. His final words in the update resonated deeply. "I thank Judge Lake for helping me find my father, and for inspiring me to become a better man." His story was no longer about loss, it was about legacy. He had found a father, and, in doing so, found himself. But the show doesn't just reunite families. Sometimes it forces people to face the hard truth that they're better apart. Take Miss Golder's story. She wanted love, wanted her child to have a father, wanted everything to make sense. But in the end, she learned that sometimes, not knowing the truth is worse than hearing it. When she discovered that Mr. Grand Mason wasn't the father, her voice broke, but her heart opened. She said later, "I had to move on. I had to learn to raise my child in peace, not in drama." That's what the court teaches. Not revenge, but responsibility. In another corner of the same courtroom, a man named Mr. Williams found his entire life rewritten because of one clerical error. What began as confusion became clarity, and his message afterward was one of gratitude. "The truth saved our family. We finally got our name back, our pride back, our child back." It's easy to watch from a distance and judge, to say who's right, who's wrong, who's lying, who's loyal. But when you sit in that courtroom, surrounded by broken families and trembling hands, you realize that no one escapes without scars. Everyone wants the same thing, peace. Some find it through forgiveness, others through freedom, like the fiery Miss Jackson and Miss Robinson. Two women whose friendship fell apart when one claimed to be pregnant by the other's son. Their argument filled the courtroom with raw emotion, anger, and disbelief. But when the results revealed that the son truly was the father, everything shifted. Miss Robinson, the woman who moments ago vowed to keep it classy but never quiet, smiled through tears and said, "Then that baby is family." They returned months later with a message of hope. "We've all been happy to be a part of Milani's life," Miss Robinson said. "We're trying to be a family together. We welcome her with love." From anger to acceptance, a transformation few could have imagined. And that's what Paternity Court captures like no other show. Humanity at its most unfiltered. Behind every accusation is heartbreak. Behind every lie, a reason. Behind every DNA test, a lifetime of unanswered questions finally finding their end. Some episodes end with laughter, others with tears. But every story carries a lesson. There's the story of Tanya Currington, who walked into court accused of lying about her daughter's father, only to walk out stronger. When she later appeared again, she had moved on, married another man, and said, "We're co-parenting now. I let him be involved. We're doing what's best for our child." That one line, doing what's best for the child, is the heart of the show. Because in the end, that's what every case is about. Not revenge, not pride, but the child who never asked for the drama, only for love. And sometimes, that love comes from unexpected places, like the man who once denied a child for 20 years, Mr. Conway. His story was one of the hardest. 20 years of fighting, denying, paying, and running. 20 years of jail time, confusion, and bitterness. But when he finally heard the words, "You are the father," the fight left his body. He wept not because he lost, but because he finally knew. For his son, Trayvon, the truth was both freedom and closure. He forgave, but not for his father's sake, for his own. "I forgive you," he said, "so I can move on." It was the kind of forgiveness that doesn't erase pain, but makes it bearable. The judge, as always, ended with grace. "Time heals," she told them.